thanks for the nice words.
So we're going to pass this back and forth because this is going to be, we have one microphone, so we're going to be flexible here. So Chief and I met recently, and when I threw this out there as an opportunity, it was like, this is a great way to connect with our police department, which the chamber really hasn't done a whole lot of in the past, and we need to do the same thing with our fire department, so I really should call Mike up here and have him sit next to me as well. But just a really cool opportunity to connect. You guys are out in the community every single day and really keeping us safe and keeping our community strong and active, and we appreciate that. So we wanted to have a chance to talk to him a little bit about what they do for the business community. But we're going to start out with a little bit of history. And so when we met, we talked a little bit about where he's from. So he grew up here in Pickerington and went to Central when we only had one school, so go Tigers. I know there's a couple of you in here. My son's also a Tiger. So it was just Pickerington then. So when he graduated, he went into the Army and came back and started his career with the Fairfield County Sheriff's Department, correct? Awesome. So how long have you been with the police department currently, and then what positions have you held within the police department?
Before I answer that, like Teresa said, she did come to me and bring up the idea of this, and when she brought up the idea, I thought it was fantastic. We jump at any opportunity to have any contact with the public. Let's face it, the only way that we're successful, imagine Chief Little would say the same thing, is with the support of the community. By getting out, speaking, answering questions, we can only build that relationship further, and I'm glad to see people did show up. Normally when the cops are invited someplace, nobody shows up, so at least somebody showed up here. So yes, my background, I did start off with the Sheriff's Office as an auxiliary. They used to run their own police academy there. And I started off there for about a year, was hired on here by Pickerington under Chief Don Pruden at the time. And I spent about 3 years as a patrol officer. One of my goals was always to be a canine officer. So within about 3 years, I proposed to the then Chief John Fuller to get a canine unit. Wrote up a proposal, and it was accepted. We had some business donations, so I became a canine officer for our first canine officer here for about 7 years. If you've been here a while, if you remember, the dog czar was my dog for about 7, 8 years. So then after that, I was promoted to the sergeant, where I was in charge of our training for the department for several years, and then to a commander position, and ultimately to the chiefs. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things you also shared with me was that you graduated from the FBI Academy, and we talked a little bit about that. And how does this opportunity set Pickerington apart from other communities? And I believe you shared with me that there's several other folks from the police department that have graduated. So tell us a little bit about that and how you feel that that really sets us apart.
So the FBI National Academy is probably the premier training for any law enforcement officer in the United States. You have to be at the rank of a lieutenant or above just to get into the academy. Our department now has had 6 different officers graduate from the academy. Commander Annis, our operations commander, is sitting over here, also graduated. And it's extremely hard to get in. We've been very, very fortunate. About 1% of all law enforcement officers get accepted into this and actually graduate the academy. So some of the things the academy allows us to do, like I said, the training's the best there is. They bring in officers from all over the world so we can interact with, I had people from Thailand, Taiwan, Hong Kong, I mean just all over the world, and we kind of see what other agencies around the United States and around the world, how they handle different problems, how they handle situations, what they can and can't do. It's kind of an eye-opening experience. We're gone for about 11 weeks, so it's a kind of a little bit of a burden on the city, but the training is no doubt worth it. Like I said, we've graduated 6 people, and I'm not for sure if anybody else in our county's even graduated anybody. It's very, very hard to get into. Luckily, we've got a good reputation for them through the academy.
I wouldn't mess with this guy for that reason. Just saying. So, what are some of your biggest challenges as the chief? I know we talked a little bit about growth of the city and some things like that, but what do you see as the biggest challenges now that you're in this position? And I guess how do you plan to overcome some of those challenges?
As you mentioned, growth is one of the big challenges for us. Luckily, we have, give this opportunity to give a shout out to our mayor, city council, and Mr. Wiseman. Not only a shout out, but it is true. Especially over the last 5 or 6 years, the council and mayor have been very generous in getting us officers, extra officers, to help with the growth. Not only with officers, but then comes extra cruisers, extra, materials and equipment. So we've been very fortunate with council and mayor to get those extra personnel to help out with that. I would say the second thing is probably technology. Keeping up with technology in our field is very hard to do. Over the last few years, we've completely upgraded our entire communication system. We just finished up our radio room, just converted completely to digital, which was a big undertaking. We've had a whole new reporting system. All this is technology. And as you guys probably know, with crime that's happening over the internet, we may have somebody in our city who has had their identity stolen, and the suspect is in Africa or Jamaica. And how do we deal with that? It's a little hard for us. I don't think the city manager will let us go to Jamaica every other week to investigate some crimes, but we can try it.
I'll carry your luggage.
Yes. So then I would say probably third is kind of the perception of law enforcement nowadays is definitely a hindrance, especially in our recruiting efforts. We were in a position earlier this year where we were hiring 4 officers, 2 replacements, and then 2 new officers that the council and mayor had given us this year. And we went through our hiring process, and of the 4 officers we wanted to hire, we were only able to hire 2 because we couldn't find good enough candidates that we thought could be police officers. So we had to start the process all over again. So with some of the perception of law enforcement nowadays, the recruiting and the amount of good applicants is decreasing. So that's a big challenge for us. And it's something that, as a chamber could definitely help. I've spoken to a couple different pastors and maybe getting some recruiting efforts in churches and maybe through the business community to help us out, and in the schools. It's just real hard nowadays.
So we talked a little bit about perception, and one of the goals that you shared with me was really enhancing your community relations. What is your plan to do that? Sure. So community relations, it's kind of the buzzwords nowadays that you hear in the public. We need, the police need to enhance their community relations. Well, really, community relations in the police department has been the key. Not just now, forever. I mean, when I was sworn in, Commander Ans probably say the same thing that Chief Pruden at the time was. You got to get out and speak to the people in public. You got to get out to the businesses. You got to speak. I mean, community relations has always been the absolute key for law enforcement. So we are always looking to enhance that, and definitely is something that I want to do. One thing we're looking at is starting a Citizens Police Academy. So we, hopefully here by the end of this year, early next year. We'll be sending things out to the business community also. Anybody in here would be welcome to go through our Citizens Police Academy. And what that is, it'll be about a 10, 11-week program where once a week you come to the police station and we show you how we do operations. You go through search and seizure classes on what we do, and have to know what our officers have to know. Defensive tactics, firearms, and it'll be free. So that's one thing that we're looking at. With the school's just starting today. We're going to be rolling out kind of a new initiative here in the school year where we've always had a school resource officer full-time at Central High School. And that officer and our DARE officer kind of bounces around from the different schools. Well, this year we're going to be assigning an officer to every school that's within the city limits. And several times a week, those officers will be going into their particular school, making contact, walking the hallways, being seen by the kids. This is something that the school would really ask us if we could increase our presence. We thought it was a great idea. So we're going to be unrolling that here in the next couple weeks. Any chance we get to improve community relations, we're going to do it. Well, we're happy to have you here, of course. So one of the questions, of course, we talked about the business community. Obviously, as a chamber, we're a room full of businesses, and city and township representatives and county representatives, but how do you, what services do you offer for the business community and share, I know we talked a little bit about some crime stats, so if you can share a little bit about that as well, and just tell us, what programs do you offer, and share with us kind of what's going on.
Our DARE officer, Brad Frost, when he's not teaching DARE, he's our business and community relations officer. So that takes up a large part of his time. And we offer through him several different things to businesses. Number one, we can do business security checks. We can give recommendations on how to, on detecting shoplifters, on detecting employee theft. You can set those up through Officer Frost. We also offer active shooter training. We have several active shooter and active assailant instructors at our department. Most of the large businesses within the city, the Marcus Cinemas, the BWC, RG Berry, we've offered this training to the hospital. We do it fairly often, but just because you're not a large business doesn't mean that you probably shouldn't be taking part in this training at some point. So feel free to give us a call. We can schedule that. We've just revamped our women's self-defense program. We've sent some officers to a couple advanced schools on women's self-defense. If you would like any of your employees or your business to take part in that, you can go through Officer Frost, and we can schedule you for that. Really, anything that you would have questions on, we have no problem sending out Brad to your business to answer any of those questions. Okay, so feel free. We've had business owners who say, well, I didn't want to call and bother the police. That's part of his duties. That's all he does. Feel free to call for any questions you have.
What about the crime stats, and then also what changes you're seeing with the drug issues, not just in Pickerington, but kind of across other communities, because I know we've talked a little bit about what's changing. I guess, what are some of your biggest calls for some of the crimes that take place, and then tell us a little bit about some of the drug changes that you're seeing. As far as crime within the city limits, we're very lucky, knock on some wood someplace, that our violent crime is still fairly low. Okay, the most crimes I would say that involve violence are domestic violence related crimes. We still have very few robberies. As a matter of fact, our robberies this year are down a little bit from last year even for businesses. So it ought to make you a little bit happy if you own your business. But for the most part, what we see here are petty type crimes. Our petty thefts are way up this year. So what we were trying to do is put the word out there that a lot of these kind of crimes can be prevented. What we're finding is that a bad guy will go look for an open car, they'll look through the window, they'll see something in there and take the crime of opportunity of opening the door and taking it. So we want to really stress crime prevention. And as far as the other crimes, the identity theft, like I spoke of before, is definitely on the rise. Scams are on the rise. If you have any of those sort of things, please feel free, and we want to know, so we know how to tackle these. Even if you think that, okay, this person's in Africa, I'm never going to get my stuff back, please let us know. What we do is we can pass on all that information to the FBI and the federal authorities who can investigate it further. And like I said, we need to know that and what's going on within the city as far as identity theft and scams are concerned. We continue to have property crimes, trespassing, shoplifting, those things for business owners or what you would be concerned with. Those are about steady every year. Okay. Drug issues. So everybody knows obviously about the heroin epidemic. We are still seeing a decent amount of heroin. We had 3 or 4 heroin seizures this past week. We do still have some overdoses. What we are seeing, though, in the drug world is a big uptake in methamphetamine again. Methamphetamine is making a big comeback in this county and surrounding counties. As some of the restrictions are happening in the opioid, through shutting down of pill mills and some of the increased laws for doctors prescribing and things like that, there has been a crackdown. So we're seeing methamphetamine now back on the rise. We've had several methamphetamine arrests over the last few months.
talking to our drug task force commander in the county, they've seen a huge increase in the amount of methamphetamine they're seeing. And everybody's heard of fentanyl, right? So the fentanyl is the kind of a synthetic opioid produced mainly out of China, gets sent over here to the United States. What we're finding is drug dealers are now lacing the fentanyl in with the methamphetamine and even marijuana. And you know, somebody will take a marijuana cigarette, smoke it thinking they have marijuana, it's got fentanyl in it, and you do that 3 or 4 times and you're hooked. So the fentanyl is on the rise, methamphetamine is on the rise.
So recently, the police department purchased an EMT unit from Violet Township, the fire department, for $1. And can you tell us a little bit about that and what the plan is for that vehicle?
Sure. Thank you to the township, Chief Little, Chief Paxton. We really appreciate that. So if you guys seen it maybe on our website, it's also parked out front. We went ahead and drove it over here. So if you guys want to take a look at it, you can. So what we have been finding over the last few years especially is a need for a vehicle that is a crime scene processing vehicle, a vehicle we could use for a mobile command center, football games, events, the Palooza, our 4th of July, things like that, a wide variety of things. And we brought an idea to the fire department and Chief Little, that when they were getting ready to get rid of one of their medics, they keep everything in such good shape at Violet Township that we thought maybe we could purchase that for a discounted price and turn it into something we could use. And they offered it up for $1. So I think Greg Annis took it out of his pocket and gave it to him right there on the spot. Yes. So what we are using that vehicle for is just those things I mentioned. It's going to be number one, a mobile command center. And what that is we have several radios that are equipped into the vehicle. The fire department has given us one of their radios. If we have a major scene, anything from a natural disaster to a shooting to a major crime scene, we can pull that vehicle up, and we have instant contact communication with every department around, the fire department. We have some computers set up in it that if we take it to, let's say, a high school football game here, we have some programs to where we can monitor social media and set it up with some keywords. So let's say somebody on social media says, I'm going to go have a fight at the Central football game. That flags it, and we can see who said that. And it gives a certain radius around that vehicle that we can pick up those code words. If somebody says, I'm going to shoot up something, those will flag, and we will be able to pick those up hopefully before anything happens. So that would be one of the main things when you see it parked at, like I said, football game, major events. That's what we're using that for. We're also using it for a equipment transport truck. So let's say it's a weekend, we have a major auto accident. Instead of taking an hour or two to call our street department in, when they're on their off time, we can pull that vehicle up. It'll have barricades, it'll have cones that we can shut down a roadway very quickly instead of waiting on some call-ins to do that. I know there's been a couple postings on social media about a SWAT vehicle. It's not a SWAT vehicle. We don't have a SWAT team. So no, it is not a SWAT vehicle. It's the main thing is for a mobile command center.
And like you said, it's out front, so they brought it here today for everybody to see. You've been in Pickerington, you grew up here, we talked about that. So what are you most proud of? Obviously you've left, you've come back, you've been here, you've grown up here, you've had your career here, you've seen a little bit of everything. So what are you most proud of for the city of Pickerington?
Well, the Chamber of Commerce is probably one of the best around. I'll say that, and the president. No, really, I think it's a combination of things. I think the schools certainly are a very prideful thing for the area. The fire department, hopefully the police department, the people who work for the city. When you talk to somebody, if you're out and about and you talk to somebody else and they find out you're from Pickerington, it's wow, hey, so am I. They still got that kind of fire about being from Pickerington. I think it's the overall, all that makeup that makes it.
What else do you want to share with us before we open it up and let the group ask questions? Is there anything that we missed that... I'm going to come back to the women's self-defense just really quickly because we've talked a lot about that. And so for the ladies in the room, we're going to try to set something up for our membership to be able to take advantage of those classes. So we'll be sharing that as we continue to work with the chief and see where we go with that. But what else? What did we miss?
The only thing I would add is I pretty much have an open door to anybody. Please just don't drop in at the last second, but if you call and make an appointment, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about anything. I think our command staff is the same thing. If Greg, can you stand up for a second? Greg Annis is our administrative commander. The way our structure is set up is we have the chief and we have two commanders. One, Commander Annis, is in charge of our operations, our detective bureau, our school resource officers, DARE officers, those type things. Our other commander's, I think, probably sitting on a beach right now, so he couldn't be here. He's on vacation. But Jason Bontrager is our patrol commander. He is in charge of all of our uniformed officers, our K-9 units, things like that. So feel free, if you would like to set up a tour of the station, if you would like to come in and speak about anything that's going on in the city, we'd absolutely be willing to sit down with you and talk about it.
Who has questions? Mr. Fox.
Chief, I have a hypothetical question for you. Let's pretend that two Pickerington officers are doing their work in town. They're together doing their job, and somebody comes up to them and throws a bucket of water on them. What's going to happen?
Well, I can tell you in town here, you'll be arrested on the spot.
Will they be bleeding when they come in?
We only respond to resistance.
Good afternoon, Chief. I'm Steve Pearson. I'm site manager at Moo Car Wash. This is the assistant manager there. Congratulations on your appointment to begin with. If anybody is aware, we get pretty busy in the wintertime. We've done some things to try to ease that to some degree. We've had a large push to sell our unlimited passes, which cuts time down at the kiosk. Customers are spending less time at the kiosk, and some other things that we've done to try to get to keep the line shorter. My question is, we have not had a chance to really test this once the winter time comes along. We are washing 900, sometimes 1,000, 1,100 cars a day, but it's stretched out over a 13-hour period. Once the winter time comes, that's going to drop. Place becomes a bit of a ghost town after the sun goes down, and so that same 900, 1,000, 1,100 cars is going to get compacted into a shorter period of time, which is going to make the lines longer. And we know we've had problems in the past. What can we do to keep the officers from having to spend their time coming to Moo Car Wash to get the line shorter and things like that? I don't know if there's an answer to that question.
It's a difficult situation, there's no doubt about it, and I will say that your business has been good about trying to work to correct the issue. Obviously, we can't have vehicles backing up onto the State Route 256. That's the main thing. I would say that having employees who could help direct traffic, keep them back onto the private lanes the best you can. I think some of the improvements of having the both sides for the vacuuming and things like that has definitely helped. I can't think of anything here lately. Commander can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen very many complaints at all related to the business here lately. So short of us keeping an extra eye on it, and short of you having your employees help out by keeping them off of the roadway would be the main thing. I know maybe having some discussions with the other surrounding businesses. I would think if somebody's busy at your place, maybe Aldi's is going to have a few more customers also, and things of that nature. Maybe you could have some discussions with them about helping out. But we did, you know, if you have any other suggestions, we'd be happy to sit down with you and go over them.
Who's got questions?
I thought I'd have one or two ringers.
Nobody has any questions?
I've got one. What can we do as chamber members to help you and the police department?
That's a good question. I think recruiting's our big thing. You know, we may be coming to you asking for advertisement help, maybe putting some brochures or something out at a certain point in your businesses. You know, just the other thing with the businesses is making sure you call when you have something. I think that was our biggest thing, because a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, we'll hear about something that happened at a business, you know, secondhand, and they'll just say, well, I didn't want to bother you, it was a theft of $5, $10. We at least would want to know about it. So don't think for a minute that if you're calling us to report something that you're being a nuisance to the police department. We want to know about it. We don't have to necessarily send an officer out or anything. We can log calls in our dispatch office. So I would say that's the main thing, is making sure that you let us know. The other thing where we really want to know about is when you have some sort of suspicious person or vehicle that's hanging around the business. You know, you'll see in a lot, not just here, across the country, where something will happen and somebody will say, man, they were suspicious to me the whole time. If we don't hear about it, then there's nothing we can do about it. So if you have a car hanging around, if you have somebody who just walks in, looks around, leaves, and they've done that several times, please don't hesitate to call us and let us handle that. Okay. Other than that, like Teresa was saying, we're going to be offering some women's self-defense classes. We would be more than happy to do some just for the business community. We usually open that up to the public, but we can do it just for the business community. That way your employees, if something happens where somebody's attacking them or something like that, then you'll be giving them the tools to help protect them. So we'll be happy to do that for the business community. Yes, ma'am.
Question. With this active shooter training, obviously in our business, we have a lot of elderly for our business. Is there some way you guys can come in and just give us a basic overview of what we need to be doing?
We absolutely can. Sure. Yep. You just contact it. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would say as the business community is, and this is actually one of the wonderful benefits of being the chamber president, is I get to build relationships with these individuals, with our mayor, with our township, just city council trustees, all of these people. First of all, they're not scary, and they're typically 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, some of the nicest people you will ever meet. And so when it comes back to perception, and you don't necessarily want to call the police if you have a problem, and the perception of the fire department might just be that they're going to come to my house and take me in an ambulance to the hospital. These guys are so nice and so wonderful and care passionately about our community, and just sharing that with others I think can be a huge value to them to help with that perception. So I would encourage everyone to meet these gentlemen and get to know them and their team, because they are fabulous people who really care about this community and really care about keeping our community safe. So that's what I would say from the chamber side of things. I've got a great role, and it's amazing that I get to build the relationships with these individuals. So I would just encourage you to do the same and share that, because it's a great way to share that with the community. So I want to say thank you for being here. We really appreciate it, and appreciate you sharing. Like we mentioned, the mobile command unit is out front. Brandy, do you have the 50-50? Would you like to bring it up? So we have a drawing for all of you folks that did our 50-50 today. Thank you for that. Once again, it's our scholarship fund. So we will do that quickly with a couple of quick announcements, and then get you out and hopefully get to go see the unit. And Rick also has a drawing, but let's give Chief Cheney a round of applause.